What's up, everyone? Welcome to Writer's Realm Podcast, and thanks for joining us on the epic adventure we call writing. We're your hosts, Bob Dotto,
Holly Robilliard.
and Austin couldn't make it tonight. And today we're going to talk about writing a series with Mallory McCartney. Hey, Mallory.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. You're so much fun. You're already
course.
fun, so I know this is going to be a blast.
Thank you.
So tell us about yourself. What do you write?
Yeah, so I write epic fantasy or epic romantasy more
Oh.
towards the end
Ooh.
book there. Yeah. I've been writing so professionally since 2017. I actually started with a small press and then they ended up going under and it wasn't good fit anyway. So I re-released my books. So 2021 in April
Okay.
it would have been. So I have them here too. So
Sweet.
I have Air of Lies.
Oh, I remember seeing that cover. That's a beautiful
Yeah.
cover.
Oh,
It's
thank you. My
gorgeous.
cover artist, like I sent her like a really vague idea, was like maybe a crown and a person, and she came with that. I'm like, what is happening? Like, she's so talented.
Nice.
And then I have
what's the-
Queen.
What,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
What was the title of the first one?
Oh yeah, it's Air of Lies.
Okay. Air
Yep.
spelled H-E, like air of like a king
H-E-I-R.
or whatever.
Yeah,
H-E-I-R.
exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
Okay. What else you got?
And then I have Queen to Ashes.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then Kingdom of Broken Iron is the third one.
Nice.
Ooh.
And then I'm currently working on the fourth and final book in this series. So it's called The Cursed Throne. And it's set to release in August this year.
How
So-
fun. I mean, that's like
That's so
right around the
exciting.
corner.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I was thinking this time last year, I was like, I have so much time for editing and like we're on track. And now editing is editing, right? It's like
Yeah.
you never know how it's going to go sometimes.
Right.
And I'm like, holy jumping, it is April. Like,
Holy
Ooh.
crap.
and it's like it's a big book. I got into some rewrites and I was talking to my one editor and I was like, I think we should really do this one part. And she's like, yes, I agree. I'm like, okay. And it's like 100,000 words, which is the biggest book I've ever penned
Mhm.
to date. Like normally I try to cap at like 95,000.
Mhm.
And it's not done yet. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, wow.
What have we done? Like,
Yeah. You're supposed to go like cut it down, right? In editing, usually.
right? I know. And this is the first time that's been the opposite. Like normally I'm like, yeah, like let's slash everything and like rip it apart. And now it's like, okay, but we have to add in this really big scene. And I'm like, oh goodness. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah. Sorry, my cat's climbing on my webcam.
I mean, for our first tangent, I saw not one but two Sphinx cats running around.
Yeah.
Is that true? You have two Sphinx cats?
I do. So we actually have 4.
Oh my gosh! you have
I know.
four.
I know. So it's kind of a funny story because we got the 2 when they were kittens. And then I used to be a groomer, like down, in the past.
Mhm.
And I had a friend reach out to me and she was like, I have a client who has 2 Sphinx cats and like she just really needs a good home for them. I'm like, I volunteer. Please. So that's how we got 4. And then we actually have 2 wiener dogs too. So we're
Oh
like
my
an
gosh.
I know. We're an animal loving household.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful.
I love
That's
them. I love
awesome.
them. And yeah, they're ridiculous. So
Yeah.
Sphinx cats are really like dogs in a lot of ways. Like, yeah,
Mm.
they're not
try-
cat-like.
I'm trying to convince my wife. That I can get one, but right now we have 2
Yes.
cats and 2 dogs, and she does not want any more animals. So
You can just show
get
up, be
away.
like, oh no.
There we go. Just
Yeah.
like you,
Oh, it's here.
Yeah. Look what I got.
I was given permission by Mallory McCartney.
Yeah. They're awesome.
Yeah.
No, they're
We have 3 very, very large dogs. So we're at like all over 100 pounds, I think.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we're at like max capacity
Oh,
Yeah, definitely.
in our house right now.
Definitely.
Unfortunately.
Aw, that's fair. That's fair. Those are big dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So Mallory, you have 3 books available. Are they available Kindle or where are they at?
Yeah, so they're actually everywhere books are sold. So
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, Indigo, Amazon, Kindle, Kobo, the
Excuse me.
whole wherever people prefer to buy their books, then
Wow.
you can find them. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Excellent. Okay.
That's
And then
amazing.
where
Thank
can we
you.
find you?
So on social media, I'm most active on Instagram, I would say. Also Facebook. I am on other stuff like Threads, TikTok. Again, I'm like TikTok, I haven't really gotten on it. Oops.
Yeah.
I don't understand it quite yet. I'm like, oh, I'll get there one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Instagram, and then is it under your name, Mallory McCartney, or is it?
Yeah, so my handle, it's author Mal McCartney.
Okay.
And then for Facebook, Mallory McCartney, and then it'll pop up
Okay.
there.
Nice. All right.
Mhm.
Well, fantastic. Well, I mean, it's great that you have a series, and it says
Mhm.
epic fantasy, romantasy.
Mhm.
So we want to talk about writing a series because we know now. I don't now. Wait a second. Let me ask: is this your first book? That you ever written? Was that?
It is.
Okay. Okay.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really funny that you asked that because like going into this, like I always knew I wanted it to be a series. That was super clear to me. It's like going on 8 years, labor of love. But yeah, I've learned a lot since day
Nice.
one. We'll just say that.
All right. Well, good because we need to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is so funny because they always tell you when you write your first book, do not start with a series, start with like short stories or a
Yeah.
single at the most. And I did the same thing. I just dove right in and just started writing a trilogy.
Heck
And I was
yes.
like, this is great.
The best.
In my mind, I'm like,
is.
it gives you way more time to work the kinks out,
Yes, yes. I absolutely totally agree. And like I always knew like for book one, like the very clear like foundation I wanted to lay and like the twists and like the character arcs, right? And then I got to the end and I'm like, perfect. Like this can just segue right now into book two. Like I don't have to squish this into, like an 800-page novel.
Right. So you then obviously are a planner.
So I'm actually a
Not a-
pantser.
Wow.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Hooray.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Brittany Goslin, she told us, don't be a pantser, whatever you do. No, listen, man.
I know.
Here's
I know, I'm,
Mallory.
like major pantser. So it's funny because I have probably like now like 8 notebooks that are just like filled with like verbal spewing. So I'll like have my notebooks around and like I don't always write at the computer. And I'll just like get a scene out or like a feeling or a character arc or whatever it is, right? And then I'll revisit it later and then expand on that like verbal dropping I have. So it's like whatever comes out, then I just go with it, and then it came together. It really did. It's but yeah, major pantser.
That's so fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, how about what's your book? What's the series about?
Yeah, so I'll start with Air of Lies. So it follows a group of friends. So there's Emery Brock, Adair, and Memphis, and they go to a school for those with special like abilities. So like think X-Men type. And then an unexpected visit happens and sets in a series of events, and the kids realize that their parents who run the school have been hiding like a detrimental secret. And as that comes out, then I can't spoil it, but a lot of bad things happen. A lot of things happen.
Of course.
Yeah. So the first half of the book is more YA because the kids are about like 15 to 17. And then we have a 6-year time lapse in the middle of the book where the characters are then 21 to 23. So I say it's like YA meets new adult with really like adult themes throughout the book, because there's a lot of like there's war scenes and there's graphic violence, and in the first half it's really the villain's origin story, and it's like why did he become the villain, quote unquote, but he's morally gray. Like I loved writing him. I'm like, he is my favorite character. I'm like, can we actually say he's the villain? Because what would we have done in his shoes? You know what I mean? Like I would have done the same thing. Like the poor guy, like he had abusive parents. Like there's just a lot of stuff going on, right? So the first half is really his story, and then I write third person with multiple point of views, so we get that rotation between all the characters there.
Nice.
Yeah, and then oh, sorry, cat.
There's a cattail that
Yeah, I'm
goes in
like
front of her.
flying cat. Like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so that really sets the foundation for book one, and then book two and three. Obviously, I end them with cliffhangers, so they pick up right where book
Nice.
one ends, and then it's hard to give a summary without spoiling
Okay, sure.
the
Yeah,
book,
it is.
right? It's like,
Right,
how
yeah.
do I summarize this? But think like X-Men meets a Game of Thrones. That's how I market it,
Ooh.
because like no one is safe.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
awesome.
don't know if my readers, I'm like, please don't hate me, but like,
No, but we get it. You know,
yeah,
I think everyone understands. Okay, like superpowered mutants, and
right?
then yeah, and then kingdoms, and
And like dark
intrigue.
magic
Ooh,
and
dark magic. Okay.
yeah, like my magic system is built on this like ancient warrior base that once was, and they got their magic by sacrificing their mortal souls. So it's like the whole magic system is based off of sacrifice, and that really comes out
Uh,
in themes
nice.
as the book goes on. So
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. All right, man. I mean, that sounds like a
Sorry.
blast.
Thank you.
No, I mean, it sounds. I mean, your covers are beautiful, and
Thank
then everyone needs to go look at that. Air of Lies. I mean, that's an easy buy. But yeah. So I mean, so you said themes, and we're talking about writing a series. So
Yeah.
like, what did that look like when you sat down and said, "Okay, I have a book idea," and what is that going to cover? Because like Holly said, I think really good advice is, hey, just do a one shot, just to kind of get it out of your system. And but none of us, why would we listen to that? Like yeah, or plan it all out, write everything out. No thanks. Like we're
Yeah.
just. So what does
Mhm.
that look like for you? How did planning out a whole like a huge story look like?
Yeah, so it actually started back in grade 8, and I had like such clear vision of it. Was just Emery and Brock at the time, but I had this idea of this man who could travel through portals of time, and he went back for this woman that he had placed on Earth. So that's where the idea was born, and I wrote out, all hail the crappy first draft, right?
Yeah.
Like off I went, Brock and Emery's story, and then a lot of time passed, and I didn't revisit it. And it was my husband who pushed me to write it again, because I was talking to him about it, and he was like, Mal, like, let me see it. And we got like the little floppy disk out and tried to put it back in the computer. Like, oh my God. But yeah, so he actually pushed me to start writing again, and that's where it really took form of the book that it is now. But yeah, I just it all kind of weirdly just came together. I know that's hard to put into words, but I started with the characters, right? So it's
Okay.
like I had my main characters. I asked myself, what do I want the world to look like? What do I want the magic system to look like? What's going to be the main conflict? And then I just ran with it. I just like took off from there. So I knew that I wanted to deal with rebellion. So it's like, how did the kids get from point A to point B, right? It's like, how did the rebellion come into cause, and who are they up against? And, why is the villain like, can he be redeemable, or is he like the big bad? And if he's not the big bad, then who is the big bad, right? So it's like I asked myself all these questions, had my notebooks, wrote out all the answers, and then it just wove together from there. Now it so Air of Lies came really easy to write, because I knew like the first half is basically like the prequel, like I said before, right? Like the villain's origin story. And then the second half, it's a lot of action, and it flowed really well. Queen to Ashes was so difficult to read. It was such a different story. I wrote the first draft, and then I ditched it completely and rewrote
Wow.
it start to finish. I know. So, but it was worth it though to do that, right? Like the changes that I made, I'm really happy with. So it's again, pantsing a series, it's just you have to find what works for you,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And yeah. Sorry, that was a
Okay.
big tangent.
No. That's your answer. Like, there's no wrong answer.
I feel like the hardest thing about, well, at least for me, the hardest thing about pantsing something is being able to leave those little cookie crumbs, throughout all of the novels to kind of link it all together.
Yes.
And I know for me, like I love when I'm like 2 or 3 books into a series and then I read something and I'm like, oh my gosh, they subtly mentioned this in the
Mm,
first book.
mm,
How did they know that they were going to talk about this? Like,
uh,
I feel like that would for me would be the hardest thing. And I think that's where like being a pantser, you have to have such a
mm,
great imagination to be able to have that like
mhm,
foresight and be able to foreshadow a little bit. So you can have
Absolutely.
those little cookie things there
Yeah.
that we're gonna see later.
mm,
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's funny with writing the fourth book too, the amount of times that like I had to go back and like fact check myself, right? It's
yeah,
like, okay, like this detail in book one, like did I mention it like this or like that? And like
yeah,
that as well has been really important part of the process to make sure everything's copacetic between
right.
point A and point B.
Mm,
Yeah. I do all my writing. Well, I like keep notes and stuff everywhere,
Mhm.
which is just whatever. But I do all of my writing on Word. And
Yes,
what
I'm a word girl too.
yay! Uh, I've started now, like when I'm writing, if I think of something that I'm like, oh, this would be really cool if in, the future I can link back to this. I've
Yes.
started actually highlighting it
mm,
in my text so that way I can remember that like, when I'm going through and doing my edits and stuff like that, I can be like, oh, right, I wanted to make sure that I linked
mm,
this somewhere else.
mm.
Heck yes. That
Otherwise
is
you just
very
lose it. And
smart.
like you,
Yes.
you just lose these like really great little pieces, and it's
Mm.
so subtle, which is supposed to be subtle until you
Yes.
get, halfway through the book and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that I mentioned this.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. I will have to use that highlighting tactic.
Highlight.
Heck yes.
That's funny. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like the smart move would be to write the entire series first
Mhm.
and make sure books 1 through whatever all jive, you know what I mean? And then publish. But why would we want to do that, right?
I
There's
know.
no fun in that.
No fun at all. The
No.
readers would love it, right? Like
Yeah.
binge
Yeah.
a series all in one go, but
Yeah.
the
It'd be
waiting
like
too
10 years
is
later,
yeah. George R.R. Martin.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Ah.
Or Patrick Rothfuss, too. He's another one.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes. And Scott Lynch, my husband reads him,
Uh-huh.
and it's been like a 12-year wait. It's like we don't talk about it in our house anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. That would be very streamlined.
We're not doing But
Yeah, that's something that I definitely, I mean, I'm just doing a trilogy, so it's a little easier. But I have kind of like that broad outline of
Yes.
the book. Like I know where every book is going and I've got it all like not drafted out, but I've got it kind of roughly outlined so that I know where these major events are going to happen.
Yeah.
And that just helps me keep my thoughts organized. And then in between that, I kind of pants it a little bit and just let the situations, work as they will.
Mhm.
As long as I can bring that back around to get my characters where they need to be at, whatever point in the story.
Mhm.
So I find for
Exactly.
me that it's easier to have that outline, but at the same time, I can see where just running with it would be a lot more fun.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Like I feel, it's like the start and then the end, right? It's like, and then the middle, like whatever comes out is again, I had a lot of rewriting. I say that, right? It's like I knew how I wanted to start it and how I wanted to end it. And then, the middle was the middle and then
Right.
That's
figured
really
it out.
interesting too. I think like a lot of people say that the middle of your book is always the hardest to write because, in the
Mhm.
beginning you're doing all the explaining and the end is where all, not all the action, but you're kind of wrapping things up. So it's like,
Right.
what do you talk about in the middle? So
Right.
it's really cool to see that that's, similar on it, but just a larger scale when it comes to a series, right? You've got those books in the middle where you're kind of still trying to, make new things happen, but you're explaining things and it's a little deeper, a little harder to work through.
Right.
Exactly. And like I write how I read. Like I want that action, right? Like I
Mhm.
want nonstop high stakes, like let's go. And I've had editors be like, "Okay, Mal, like this is really good, but we have to add like just a little like a downtime." Like and I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What did they
Give them
do?"
a break, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, my poor characters. I tell you that. They've been through the ringer."
I mean, I think
Um,
it's so hard too when you're doing it from multiple points of view, right? Because you're like,
yeah,
okay, action from this person's point of view. Now, what does this person think about it? What does this person think about it? So when you're in
exactly.
like one person or two people, you have more opportunity for downtime. But when you
Yes.
get into, anything more than that, it's just like everyone's going all the time.
Right.
Exactly. And how the series kind of progressed, which is interesting looking back, but it's like book one takes place in a central kind of location in the world, and then book two is in a completely different, like they travel. So I showcase like different cultures in different parts of the world um throughout this series, which I didn't plan to at first. So I added a lot of like that movement, right? It's like from point A to point B, and what does that look like? And yeah, which funny looking back.
um, what about? I mean, because there's so. All right, let's talk about what your story contains. It contains a story, okay, the
Mhm.
overall story, and then we have plots and
Yes.
subplots,
Yes.
and then we have character arcs,
Hmm.
and then we have themes. I mean, that's a lot. If we're and honestly, we don't think about that when we're writing out a
Right?
story. When we're outlining, you don't think, okay, what's the character arc? You just think about, like you said, like there's a man and he's got a portal and he's traveling through time and finding the
Mhm.
girl. All kinds of stuff. And it's and that's kind of like where most of us start. But I feel like it is important that we do, right? There's got to be a character arc. I mean,
Yeah,
otherwise our characters are very shallow, right? So
exactly.
do we do? I mean, talk about, you got 4 books. I've got 6 books in my series. Holly's got Holly doing the 3 so far. I'll say you probably
That's
end up with
awesome.
more. But like, should we, when we're talking about character arcs, is it like a little at a time in each book, or is it going to be at the very end of your 4-part Mallory, where somebody's redeemed, or like what does that look like?
I'd say in each book there's a lot going on. But I really wanted to write about flawed characters. So even like my main female lead and my main male lead, like they're not, untouchable in that sense, right? Like I really
Right.
wanted to make them human and relatable. So Emery in each book kind of focuses on a main character, I guess you could say too. So it's like book one is the start of the academy, right? And Emery, and obviously Adair, who's the villain, it focus on their character arcs into, why they become flawed. Whereas book two, we get more Brock and his backstory, and he's the only person who has two like abilities. So it's like, why did that happen?
Mm.
And then his character arc gets developed, right? And then book three, we're on the Shattered Isles, which is like my pirate nation. I love it so much. I really do. And the third book is probably the most like emotional for me. But we deal with Emery and Marquis, and he's the only one who's been kind of kept safe from the war that's been happening. And it's like, why was that? So it's like each book has kind of a different focus a little
Mm.
bit on each character arc.
Mm.
Um, but that's not to say that the characters that I'm not focusing on, they still have development, right? So it's like,
Right.
uh, what progresses them for what are they fighting for, what happens when they don't win, right? So it's like,
Right.
it's that, right? It's like, it's not an easy peasy journey where
Yeah.
it's like, we're all powerful beings and we're gonna win this war and it's gonna be great, because then it'd be one book. Right.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, each book I kind of dive deeper down into each main character, and there's character deaths too, so pretty fast. We
Pretty fast.
within, yeah, Heir of Lies and Queen to Ashes, and Kingdom especially. So yeah, yeah.
I think it's so important like to remember too, like just because there's like a character arc in one book does not mean that that character is done growing, right? Because
Yeah.
the events, the events in your second book are going to continue to change that character.
Yeah.
So it's like you can have them go through this whole character arc and go from A to B in the first book, but in the second book, bam, this huge event happens.
Right.
Or even just smaller events that build up to something, right? And that will continue to change your character. So it doesn't
Exactly.
mean they're going back to the way that they were. It just means that they're going to continue to change in different ways.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like,
So,
it's
Great
funny you
point.
say that, because I was actually working on the chapter that I'm working on in the last book right now, and it's like I'm writing from Brock's perspective, and he has been through so much in the first three books. Like, I mean, an astronomical amount of like pain and betrayal and loss and grief. And so
Yeah.
it's like he wouldn't be like, I am hunky dory, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so he's going through a lot of anxiety and like PTSD.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, your characters are ever evolving like we are, right? Like through
Right.
stages of life. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And there could be times where they're tempted to go the dark side too. You
Yeah.
know, that's always fun, right? Like when we
It's
have
so
this.
fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm editing my fourth book right now, just
Nice.
like you, but it'll probably be available next month, maybe. But
That's exciting. Congrats.
yeah, I'm indie published, so I can do it whenever. I can do it tonight if I wanted, but
Mhm.
but it's still we still want to make it as awesome as we can. But anyway, yeah, one of my characters is going to be really tempted to like jump into the bad guy zone.
Yeah.
And that's always exciting. So that's a good point, Holly, about how our characters are never, because then they'd be bland, really.
Right?
I mean,
It'd be
okay, they're done.
stagnant.
Yeah, they're done by the
Yeah.
first book. They got their prize, and now what? Why am I reading this? Kind of a thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And I feel like there's a lot of that too, from point one to the end. All the morally gray, as we say, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is fun to write, though.
Yeah.
It's really fun to write. So
absolutely. One of my main characters in my trilogy. So I also have a second book that I started writing off to the side that's a standalone.
congrats, that's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my November project. That kind of took over me writing my trilogy. So now that's drafted, I've started writing the trilogy again.
Nice.
And I was like, one of the main characters in the trilogy is just so morally gray. And I love writing him as a character because it's just so much fun. And like he was like the character that I had always dreamed up when I first wanted to write a book. And so I couldn't just put that personality into my other character in the standalone. So I've just been thinking about him all the time about how much I've been wanting to write this terribly morally great character. And now that I'm finally doing it again, like I was on a plane flying back from a work trip last week and I sat down and I was like, oh yes. Like, I was just so excited. I'm like, let's go destroy some lives. Yes. Like,
That's hilarious.
My readers will tell you that is like my slogan. Let's go destroy some lives. So bad, but so true.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious, you guys.
Fun.
How about character Bibles? I'm going to say that's pretty important. I started writing one for my first book. I wonder if there's a series Bible. I guess there would be.
Yeah, probably.
To kind of keep track of plots and right?
characteristics and everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
got
good question.
yeah, because characters for me, I'm always forgetting what their eye color was. I've only been writing them for
Yes.
like a year and a half, and I'm like, nope, I don't remember if it's hazel or if they're brown. Let me go grab this book, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're super helpful though, and they're
Yes, they
fun
are.
too. You get to find a picture, right? Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you guys do this, but I mean, I look for actresses. I mean, my two main characters are female, so
Mhm.
but yeah, I'll go find it. Yep, this is her, you know, and I'll post the picture and you know, print it out and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's
Or
fun.
mood boards. I love doing that, like finding, as you said, like different actors or actresses, but like also like mood boards for like different scenes. I'm a big Pinterester. So
Mm,
I'll find like artwork and stuff and be like, oh, this is
nice.
that scene or this is that place. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This is the vibe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I
Um,
think they're really helpful just to, for me anyways, to keep track of what information I'm actually releasing about my character. So like,
hmm,
if I know my character has like 5 secrets and I've only, I know that there's one secret that she's not telling anybody or 2 secrets that she's
Mm,
not going to tell anybody at all. It's just part of who she is. Um, I love having that written somewhere so that I'm not
yes.
like halfway through the book and I'm like, having her explaining this to someone because I don't want that information released yet. So
mm.
Exactly.
having like, it's a part of my character. So usually you think, oh, it's a part of my character. I can write about it whenever.
Hmm.
But with a series, especially, that's not the case because you need to keep some of that information for
That's
later.
smart.
Exactly, exactly. My husband and I were actually just talking about that tonight. Right? And it's like how fast you want to release stuff and when and what book. And yeah, that's why I have like a bazillion notebooks everywhere filled with all the stuff.
A bazillion. So we need to start with a bazillion book notebooks,
Yes.
and and I feel like yeah, you write out for the first 5, and then you're going to change stuff, and then they'll
Mhm.
turn into more in another 5, right? And now you have a
Exactly.
bazillion, right?
Exactly. That's probably why it's taken me 8 years, though,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Now
But
for
Yeah.
me, I'm running into an issue with plot points
okay.
because I have too many plots going on. I
Okay.
have
Yep.
in this book right here, I have guess what? This is my first foray into two different things. Well, first, it involves werewolf shifters. Okay,
Oh, yes.
so and all the guys look so badass. They're all tall, long black hair. You know, absolute muscle. They're just
Yep.
they're all 6'4". There's 0% fat on them, but always they've got the stern look, and
Yeah.
smoldering eyes. Okay, so anyway, werewolf
Kicking
shifters.
jaw.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
the
exactly,
jaw.
exactly. So we got that, and then I have a something called the Eye of Eternity, which is the title of the book.
Okay.
That it right now it's broken, and one princess, werewolf princess, had one. She got kidnapped. They're like, "Where's the other half? What's or why is this significant? It's broken. Doesn't even work. Oh, somebody else found the other half, and this other guy is a villain from 2 books ago." Um, and he has the other half. So now it's like game on. So there's that plot, okay. And then I have what was the other one? Oh, there's a bad guy from one of my other protagonists past has come back into her, like when she was a kid. Just has flashbacks of this very evil man, and now he's back trying to get her into something. I can see the visible confusion already. So I already know I already need to drop
No,
this.
no.
No,
It's
and
I'm following
then
it.
I have another plot point, which I think last night. This is what happens when you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning. You're like,
Uh,
wait a second, I
yes.
need to do something. I think I need to fix this.
Yes.
But there's another plot point that I had, like an eldritch horror is coming down the road, which is going to be in book 6. And I'm just kind of planting
Oh
seeds,
my
but
goodness.
like this
Sorry.
is too much. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like hopefully we can, don't follow me, listeners, like write it all out and then go, what? Because that's way too many things to worry about, especially for readers, because it could be like, what am I looking at now? Like, how many things are going on, right?
Hmm.
How do you guys keep track of your plots?
Um, so I mean, I've been right where you are. I'm not gonna lie. You know, and it's like I then ask myself, what can I cut out, right? And kind
Yeah.
of go from there. My editors have been really great at that for
Mm,
me. They're like, this does not have to be in here right now.
yeah.
So I really have appreciated them throughout the years for that. I really struggle or am struggling with that in the fourth book a
Mm,
lot. Oh my
mm,
goodness. Endings are so hard to
mm,
do. You know, it's like even though I had a general direction, it's still I'm like, but this could happen, and
yeah.
right. So it is difficult. For
Yeah.
me, my editors have been my key to
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So we need an outside force telling us.
Yeah, yeah. Just a fresh pair of eyes, or even my husband, right? Be like, does this work in this scenario? Or does that
Yeah.
work better?
I'll
He's
send
a
my
good.
book. I'll send my book to your husband then. You can take
Yeah,
it
yeah. He's great for that. He's very blunt.
away.
He's like, no, this has to come out. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Like, let's go. So yeah, for me, like just a fresh pair of eyes because like as the writer, right, you're so in it,
Right.
you know, and constantly thinking about all these different scenarios, multiple characters and world building, and it just sometimes it really, you know,
Mm.
you just need to come out of that for a
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I at one point, I think I like heard this on a TV show or read in a book or something at some point in my life. I heard this saying and it was like related to clothes and it was like you'll never love anything more than when you first try it on. And I was like, you know, you go in and you try and clothes, you're like, yeah, it's okay, I kind of like it, you know, and then you buy it and then it sits in your closet forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I started doing this thing where if I find myself doing that when I'm trying on clothes, I'm like, nope, don't love it, don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is the concept that I've started applying to my plots.
Wow.
So in my standalone book, it kind of has a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast vibe.
Love
And
that.
there's a lot of like similarities, I think, between the two. And just because of how much I love Beauty and the Beast, I wanted to have like these characters. There's a curse in this book, and I wanted the characters or some of the sub characters to just also be affected by this curse and have them turn into like animals or something to kind of like pay homage to Beauty and the Beast.
Heck
Mm,
yes.
And so that was like, you know, it was a fun plot line for me. But then as I got into my editing stages, you know, that was just one extra plot. And I was like, do I love this?
yeah.
Why is it here?
That's a
Okay, it's
great
only
point.
here because I feel like I should do it to, you know, pay homage to this other book and or this other story. And that for me was kind of like, okay, I don't actually think that I need this here
Mm,
because it's not really contributing anything to my book. It's like a fun piece for me,
Yes.
right.
but it's not really helping anything else. And then I had the same thing happen when I forgot about one of my characters who had I had planned out this entire plot line for him.
Yeah.
And I wrote about him for like the first 5 or whatever chapters and then just forgot writing about him. And it was like,
No.
you know, in my editing, I then went back and I'm like, oh, I can add him in editing. And I was like, the fact that he's not in here right now just shows that he needs to be removed
Nice.
from the first 5
Yeah.
chapters because he's obviously not important enough.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
fair.
think just don't second guess yourself, I guess, is
Yes.
if if you put something in there and you're kind of like, do I like this? I'm not sure, then you
That's
probably
true.
really don't.
Mhm.
So,
I
That's
agree.
true. That's a really good point because sometimes I'll come up with book ideas, of course, right? And it's like I don't know why people. So I ask some people, oh, what are you going to do when you're done with this? There's like I have like there's not enough time for me to live to write all the books I want to write. Okay,
Yeah.
like
So true.
but I'll come up with a book idea. And I'm like, oh my god, that'd be great, and blah blah blah. And then exactly what you said, Holly, I'll be like, but wait, is this a book I'm going to pick up and read? Like if I saw this on the bookshelf, no, move on.
Yeah.
Maybe cool, but yeah. So that's a good point. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it can be really tough as well. I mean, I know I've got like constantly coming up with book ideas and I keep them all written down and I'm like, yeah, after I get through the next 7 books that I want to write, I'll write about this one. And it's like, it's really hard too, especially because I just love the foundation of my world. And I love like the concept and I love the magic behind it. And I've put so much thought into it that I always want everything to link to that same thing. So even my standalone is linked a little bit to my trilogy. And then I have another standalone idea that will also be linked to it. And so it's really tough, I think, to try and break away from that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like you want, when you love it so much and you're like, do I want to link all these things together? Do I not want to link these things together? Because then once you start linking everything, it's like, when do you stop? How do you write these other books, right?
Right.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree. You're building a multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I remember listening
But then
to
it's also like, are you holding yourself back from writing something better because you're relying so much on that one concept, right? So
Yeah.
it's tough.
It's so tough. It's so tough.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like when you've been with a series and group of characters for so long. Like I always say, like coming back to this world, it just feels like coming home to me. You know what I mean? Like the characters are so familiar, and like I know that, and thinking that's like, oh, this is the end. It's like, holy moly, it's a bit anxiety inducing in a way, right? It's like.
So how do we look at writing the next book? Is it a continuation of the book we just left? Like Mallory, you mentioned leaving a cliffhanger, so like it's almost like hooked into the next story, into the next book. As like a nice seamless thing. Do we do that, or is it more? I hope we don't like try to make the next book better or more exciting or more whatever, But like, how do we do that? How would that look like?
So for me, that looked like, that's a really good question.
Well, if we don't, I mean, I was just thinking about
this
it.
question, I'm like, no, that's a great question. Like, what did that look like for me? I mean, for this series, for the Black Dawn series, it helped a bit with the age progression, right? So that was a bit of a natural thing for me. Yeah, sorry, that it stumped me a bit. You go, Holly.
Okay.
I will come
Holly.
back. We'll come back.
Well, it was easy for me to know where I was going to be going on the second book of the trilogy, just because I kind of did that broad outline, right? So I knew that by the end of the first book, we were going to figure out what the problem was, and that we were going to figure out what the solution is. But then the next two books are going to be helping us actually achieve the solution. So, and then I kind of split it into, so there's like two things that are needed together to solve the problem. So one book is going to be focusing on getting one of those items, and then the final book will be focusing on getting the other item.
Yeah.
So again, just because I had that outline, it kind of helped guide me to where I wanted to be going. So writing that second one is going to be a lot easier, I think. I say that now. I'll probably be crying when I start writing it. But it made it a lot easier. And just knowing kind of where I wanted those characters to go helps point it in the right direction. But also, I have a terrible habit of just somehow a character that I didn't even know existed will suddenly be in my book, and then I'll get halfway through my outline and be like, well, now we're going in a completely different direction. So I have all these characters making all these decisions on their own here, so I say try and plan, but
yeah, I know, I get that. Yeah, book 1 and 2 were, as I said, like book 1 was really seamless for me. Book 2, because it focuses a lot on Adair, which is the villain, and Emery. It's like majority of the book is their dynamic, and she's trying to buy time for the rebels so they can rally forces and find people to help them. But at the end, it's like that book, looking back, is just, it is a book about friendship and loss, and she just goes through so much in that book. But going into book 3 and 4, I just I set up complete chaos. Like there's there's so many bad things happening, and I'm like, oh my god, like there's a massive war, and like right in the first chapter of the fourth book, it's like we are in it, like there is no time.
Right.
Right, so it's like yeah, book three and four are and were really hard for me to write, but as I said, like book three is probably my most personal work, because I got really sick in the middle of writing the series. Like so sick, so I got bit by a tick.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I
Never
know,
again.
I got Lyme disease, and like
Oh my
I
gosh.
actually like couldn't write or read for a year, so I had to like rebuild that. So like book three for me, like what Emery goes through is a metaphor for Lyme disease. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So it's like
Yeah,
hard
that's
book to
good.
write, but really personal.
Yeah.
Themes in there, which I think made it like I'm really happy with how it turned out, right? So it's like but now writing book four, it's a completely different experience, because it's like, okay, I have all my chaos babies is what I call them, right? And they're all in turmoil and code red situations. And how do I finish this where it ties up everything that I've set up, right? Which
Yeah.
is different. There's a lot going on. It's a very fine line, and I find with fantasy too, where it's like you don't want to overcomplicate it, but like complicate just enough, right? Like it's kind of that thing. So yeah, book four has been hard to tie up.
I think that if you're stuck as well, like if you've written one book, or whether it's one or two or whatever, if you're in the middle of a series and you get stuck,
Mhm.
if you're not a planner and you don't have an outline, that's still okay. Just sit down and think, okay, where do I want my characters to go by the end of this book?
Mhm.
And then think back and be like, well, where are they now? And then
Exactly.
from there, you can just find a way to just organically bridge those two. Because once you know where they're going and you know where they're at, you're like, okay, well, how do I get them from A to B then?
Mhm.
But you can't do that if you don't know where
Yeah.
A or B is.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think just being able to sit down and refresh your mind about what you're hoping to accomplish and what you've already accomplished, and
Mhm.
then smash them together.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. So speaking of chaos babies, your cats have been just going
Oh,
bonkers.
I know. I'm so
They're
sorry.
amazing.
I'm like, thank
They're
you.
Funny.
amazing.
It's so
I, like,
funny.
my youngest, he like I don't know if you guys saw, but he like legitimately, I have Funko Pops behind me,
Uh-huh.
and he just like smashed them down, like jumped on my water bottle. I'm like, really, dude? Like the one night that I have something going on, and he's
That's
just like, nope.
hilarious.
Yeah, he's very energetic. Like,
That's so funny.
so thank you for
Yeah.
appreciating them.
It's been very entertaining. I mean, you've been fantastic, but your animals back there are going nuts, and it's
Like,
so fun to watch them race around the room.
yeah, they're crazy. I'm like, I have started this year to build like cat trees on the wall, right? So we have like a track around the apartment, so
Yeah.
they can like jump from the couch onto the wall and like race around. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's we
Very
love
fun.
them. We love them.
Yeah. All right. So, are you going to be done after book 4, Mallory, with your series?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. And I'm
Congratulations
so
on that.
excited. Thank you.
That comes out in August, right? The last
Yes.
book comes out in August.
Yes.
The other 3 are available now.
August.
And then what's next? What are you writing next?
So I've actually, in between editing the last book, I am doing a complete genre switch.
Okay.
And I'm writing my first horror novella.
Ooh.
Yes,
There we go.
my two loves, fantasy and horror. So
Nice.
yeah, and I'm so excited for it. It's really disgusting and scary, and my editors are like, oh my god. So yeah, so that actually I did have a tentative release date. At first I was like, yeah, October 8th, which still might stand. But I actually might try to query it. I'm not sure yet. I might toss it out there just because, why not? Why not try, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then if it doesn't get picked up, then I'll just self-publish it, and that's
There
fine.
you go. Yeah. That's
So
exciting.
yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited. Not that, like, as I said, like the Black Dawn series will always be my first love, right?
Yeah.
My labor of love. And same with fantasy. But I'm really, really excited after 8 years just to
Yeah.
step into something completely fresh, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's been really fun. Challenging though too. Right? But yeah,
That's
it's been
exciting.
great.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
All right. So here's where our segment is don't do this.
Okay.
When writing a series, don't do this, and I have no idea. Now, last week it was funny because I had something and I jumped in front of Austin because I didn't want him to take mine.
Oh no.
But we always, because sometimes
Don't
we'll,
steal
yeah. I'm like, let me
it.
hurry up and get this because I have no idea. But tonight I seriously have nothing. I have no idea. So I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to wait for either Holly or
Okay.
Mallory to go first.
Yeah. So the number one thing that comes to mind first is don't forget to fact check, right? We were talking about
Oh,
that a little bit before. It's like what characters' eye colors or like small details.
yeah,
Yeah, just go back, double check.
smart.
Yes, that is, don't forget to do that. And for me and just my experience, don't ever underestimate the power of your editors. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, right? And just
yeah,
going through that process, and no matter how long that process takes. And for me, each book has been really different, time-wise, like for turnaround. And that's okay. That's okay,
yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
mhm,
Like you said, life happens, and so, but you're using that. Whatever happened, unfortunately, Lyme disease. You're using that,
mhm,
and
mhm.
it's making the character even more real. To the
Yeah,
readers. So,
yeah.
I mean, we don't want that to happen. We don't want
Mm-mm.
to get pinned down with something like that, but we can use it as a strength, right?
Exactly. It
Yeah.
was really cathartic for me to write that, right? It's like, because all of that feelings of what I had gone through and going through, and like, I will be chronically ill for the rest of my life from that one moment, right? So it's like
Yeah.
all of those things, and I just like poured it in to the books, right? And
Right.
that was so cathartic and so wonderful. But also produced, I think, some really powerful moments, right? And
Right.
like, that are real, because they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Okay.
good, but not good, as you say, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Not good, but we're gonna use it for our
Yeah, we're
strength.
gonna use it. We're gonna
Right
use
on. Yeah.
it.
Do you have anything, Holly? I just had something and now it's gone.
It'll come back.
Yeah. I
Oh.
will say again, just don't forget those cookie crumbs, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
I think if you can do it two ways. If you're a planner, then you can think ahead of things. Like if I know in 3 books I'm going to talk about this, I want to hint at it here
yeah,
or something like that. So it's not a surprise for your readers, right? Because they like to be surprised about something, but they don't want to be surprised that something is so unbelievable. They've just never heard or thought about it before. That's not cool.
exactly.
Um, and if you're a pantser, you can also do it by working forward. So if you're going to mention something now, write it down or highlight it or whatever, and then just, mention it on a bigger scale in the future.
Mhm.
And you can always go back through when you're editing and work through it backwards as well. It can be anything as simple as like if you know that there's going to be like a sword or something big at the end, make sure that it's mentioned in the beginning, like a myth or a story, or if someone has a certain colored ruby on their sword, why is that? Like just little details, or it can be a character's name. If they end up having firepower at the end of your series, in the beginning, mention something about, um, like their whatever, like their hair being this color, or mention that their name is actually like an acronym for something for a flame, or it means this in another language, or anything like that, because readers love that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they love when they get to a point in your book and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this was a clue way back in the first
Yeah.
book." And that's
Yeah.
why they go back and reread your stuff, guys, and they buy more of your stuff because,
Yeah.
they come to know your writing style and they start to look for those little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, don't
Beautiful.
forget the cookie crumbs.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. I was gonna say I'll just add mine because it's and I'm a beginning writer too. This is my very first series. This is my fourth book I've ever written.
Mm.
So don't include too many plot points, or
Mhm.
maybe don't confuse the reader because, like Ollie was saying, we kind of forget when we're writing. We usually write for us. Like this is what I like,
Yeah.
but somebody's going to buy it, unless you're just going to hoard it, unless, no publishing or whatever, then write whatever you want.
Yeah.
But we do want to maybe share what we wrote, and we don't want to confuse our readers. So like I explained earlier, I had way too many plots going at the same time, and it's just too, I know as a reader, I would get too unfocused, and then I don't care about any of the plots because I'm juggling too many. So that'd be mine. Yeah, just keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I had another one too. I had someone tell me this, and it's really stuck with me. But don't forget that no one else on this planet can write your story like you can.
Amen. I like it.
Yeah. Even if it's, there's as genres, right? There's so many different directions, but even if it's epic fantasy and another author, like no one can write your story like you can. So
that's right.
Don't give up. Don't give up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Mallory, we had a blast. This time went by super fast.
So fast. Yes, thank you for having me. I had such a fun time, and
I'd like to see when maybe we can have you on again when you're doing your horror in October.
Heck yes.
Or earlier or something. We'll see what happens.
Yes, it's almost done. Actually, I'll keep you posted because I'm like, I got one more little segment to go, and then it's done. Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask one question about the horror. Is it monsters or is it like a person, like a serial killer?
Okay, so what I did, it's a little bit of everything. So it's set in the same universe, right? So, but it's 5 stories, but 5 different characters, 5 different tropes.
Oh.
Yeah, so we have body horror, found footage, which was my favorite one to write.
Yeah.
Like Blair Witch Project up in here.
That was awesome. Yep.
Yeah. And then we have monster, like creature features, cosmic horror, and then a twist on urban legend and haunted house. So there's a lot going on, but I picked some of my favorite ones I love to read and ran with it. So yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
Nice. All right. I just couldn't wait. I'm not going to wait till October for that. So
it's coming.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was a blast, Mallory. Thank you so much. I'm sorry
Thank you so
that
much.
we can't have a 2-hour version of this, but
oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So fun.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Please give all your little fur babies a little kiss on the head.
Oh, I will. Thank you for appreciating their chaos. They're extra crazy tonight. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then for one more time, where can we find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, author Mal McCartney, or on Facebook, just Mallory McCartney author.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are the main ones.
All right. So don't forget to write and subscribe to our channels at the link below so you don't miss any of the Writers Room content. We always love to hear from our listeners. Oh my gosh, from our listeners. So if you have a question or a topic you want us to dive into, please get in touch. And please go look for Air Within. No, Lies. No, Air of Lies.
Air of Lies.
Air of Lies. You got it. It's okay.
Air of Lies. And the cover, like I said, the cover is fabulous.
It's Monday.
Oh my gosh, headphone, getting over a cold. So
yeah.
But we'll catch you all later. But until then, bye.
Bye.